Excellences, Monsieur.
Thank you, Excellencies. Ambassador Jérôme Bonafont, Permanent Representative of France to the United Nations and President of the Security Council for the month of April.
Je salue.
I welcome the presence here with us of Ambassador Huang Sha, Special Envoy of the Secretary General for the Great Lakes region. And I also welcome the presence of Ms. Teresa Kayikwambe Wagner, State Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Francophonie of the DRC, and of course, Ms. Catherine Russell, Executive Director of UNICEF. Mr. President, I should like to begin by extending my warmest congratulations to you and your team for your presidency of the Council this month, and I wish you every success. And at the same time, I thank you for your indulgence and the indulgence of all members of the Security Council, enabling me to participate in this fashion. We welcome the introduction of the SG's report just provided by His Excellency Huang Sha, Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General for the Great Lakes region, and we thank him for his tireless efforts to achieve peace and stability in the region. Mr. President, the report that has just been presented reflects a general approach to the current state of the security situation in the GLR and analyzes the main and recent political developments in the region. We note with concern the worsening security situation in some countries in the region. This represents a setback in collective efforts for peace in Africa. We also share the concerns expressed in the fields of politics, protection of civilians, human rights, and food security. Despite this situation, we are optimistic, and we would highlight the initiatives taken by regional leaders through high-level political engagements with the aim of restoring confidence and promoting peace and stability in the GLR. Distinguished members of the Council, regarding the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we express our deep concern at the continued deterioration of the security and humanitarian situation in the east of that country. The occupation of important cities such as Goma and Bukavu by the M23 and the consequent advance of its forces into new territories, which, in addition to escalating the conflict, threatens the territorial integrity of the DRC, worsens the humanitarian situation of local populations, and contributes significantly to undermining the diplomatic efforts undertaken within the scope of existing mediation processes. We welcome all efforts made to find regional peace and stability, in particular the concerted actions at the level of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, and the East African Community, EAC, and the search for peace in Eastern DRC in conjunction with other international actors. Furthermore, we highlight the holding of the joint SADC-EAC summit held on February 8th in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which, in addition to calling for a ceasefire, reiterated the need to resume direct negotiations and dialogue with all state and non-state actors, including the M23 group. It also approved the roadmap that defines measures for immediate implementation in the short, medium, and long term to achieve sustainable peace and security in Eastern DRC. Moreover, the meeting of the African Union Peace and Security Council at the level of heads of state and government held in Addis Ababa on February 14th, 2025, urged the parties to take advantage of the progress achieved within the framework of the Luanda process. The meeting highlighted the fact that there is no military solution to the conflict and called on the parties to prioritize diplomatic and political commitments, calling for the immediate resumption of negotiations with all state and non-state actors. As recommended by the EAC-SADC Joint Summit, and the Peace and Security Council also endorsed the proposal aimed at strengthening, coordinating, harmonizing, and complementing the Luanda and Nairobi processes, as well as the appointment of additional facilitators to support them in consultation with the AU Commission. In this regard, the virtual summit I've referred to, which took place on March 24th, 2025, recommended the appointment of a panel of facilitators composed of 5 eminent African personalities, distinguished members of the Council. In view of the considerable progress achieved under the Luanda process, namely the consensus reached between the DRC and Rwanda regarding the neutralization of the FDLR and the withdrawal of Rwandan Defense Forces from Congolese territory, through the elaboration of the concept of operations, His Excellency Mr. Lorenzo has continued to commit himself to this process, and he dedicated himself more to the presidency of the African Union and left the role of mediator to another head of state. It is worth remembering here that direct negotiations between representatives of the DRC government and the M23 were planned, but in extremis, they were aborted by the M23, referring to the sanctions that had been imposed on them by some countries and organizations outside the continent. That was all under the same process, and it was in these circumstances that the AU Conference Bureau, meeting on the 5th of April, considered and endorsed His Excellency Faure Gnassingbé, President of the Togolese Republic, to assume the role of mediator appointed by the AU for the conflict between Rwanda and the DRC, to continue the efforts initiated by His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of Angola. And thus, on April 12th, the Assembly of Heads of State and Government decided by consensus through the silence procedure and in accordance with the Assembly's procedural rules to appoint His Excellency Faure Gnassingbé, President of the Republic of Togo, as AU mediator to continue diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis. In the same vein, President Lorenzo today received in Rwanda, Thursday, the 16th of April, 2025, the President Faure Gnassingbé to exchange views on this new mission which the African Union has just entrusted to him. In this context, the African Union Commission was directed to develop, in consultation with relevant parties, a unified roadmap for the mediation process, building on the progress achieved through the Luanda and Nairobi processes, and in this way reaffirmed the leadership of the African Union in resolving conflicts in Africa. We welcome the diplomatic initiatives of the United Nations, other international organizations, and countries of goodwill that are interested in contributing to the prevention, management, and resolution of conflicts in Africa, as long as they are aligned with and coordinated with the AU agenda. Allow me to take this opportunity to express our gratitude for the support provided by countries in the region, regional and international organizations, and international partners in particular, the confidence shown by members of this Council in the Luanda process and in the diplomatic efforts undertaken by His Excellency João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola. Excellencies, we understand that peace, security, and stability in the DRC resides in the points of convergence contained in the resolutions and decisions of the UN Security Council, the African Union Peace and Security Council, and the joint SADC-EAC summits. These are, namely, the unconditional implementation of an immediate ceasefire, the immediate cessation of hostilities, return to the negotiating table without preconditions, implementation of an effective verification mechanism, withdrawal of foreign forces from DRC territory, neutralization of FDLR forces, cessation of support for armed groups, and full respect and strict compliance with deliberations of African regional mechanisms and the UN Security Council, including Resolution 2773. Sincere dialogue among the sons and daughters of the DRC is also essential. As the current chair of the AU chairmanship, we reaffirm our readiness to continue supporting diplomatic efforts to restore the stability and development of the DRC and to facilitate the rapid implementation of coordinated, inclusive, and harmonized commitments based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Mr. President, the CAR has taken significant steps towards stabilizing the country following the implementation of the joint roadmap for peace in the Central African Republic adopted at the third CIRGL mini-summit of heads of state and government held in Luanda, Angola. However, we note with concern the emergence of attacks in February 2025 carried out by the rebel group Coalition of Patriots for Change, CPC, against governmental forces. The UN multi-dimensional stabilization mission in the CAR and the civilian population in the north and center of the country have put into question all pacification efforts for this long-awaited peace. Mr. President, allow me to express our concern as well about the security situation in the Republic of Sudan, a member country of the Great Lakes region which is facing an armed conflict that began 2 years ago. It is of great concern to the African Union. We express our deep concern about its negative impact on the Sudanese people and on the region. The Republic of Angola argues that the situation of the conflict prevailing in Sudan involves political diplomatic dialogue. Mr. President, on this point, speaking of Sudan, we encourage the efforts and the initiatives of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda and coordinator of the ad hoc presidential committee responsible for mediating that conflict. I thank the permanent representative of Panama for that statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. Let me start by thanking Special Envoy Shea and Executive Director Russell for briefing us today, as well as Foreign Minister Tete Antonio on behalf of the African Union. We also welcome the participation of DRC Foreign Minister Wagner to our meeting and the representatives of Kenya and Rwanda. President, this month we commemorate 31 years since the genocide against the Tutsi. During this time we honour the memory of those who lost their lives and recognise the remarkable resilience shown by the people of Rwanda. I will make 3 points. First, the United Kingdom remains deeply concerned at the situation in eastern DRC. We regret that despite the unanimous adoption by this Council of Resolution 2773 almost 2 months ago, it remains far from being implemented. While the withdrawal of M23 and Rwandan Defence Forces from Walikale is a positive step, much more needs to be done. We reiterate this Council's call for the M23 to cease hostilities and withdraw from all controlled areas, and for the Rwandan Defence Forces to cease support for the M23 and withdraw from Congolese territory. We call on the parties, in line with Resolution 2773, to agree an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and to seriously engage with regional peace processes. Second, The United Kingdom welcomes regional leadership towards a durable resolution of the conflict. We welcome the nomination of President Gnassingbé of Togo as the African Union's mediator for the peace process for Eastern DRC. We hope this will support coordination between regional and international efforts to deliver peace. And we urge the parties to engage with his efforts and urgently implement the EAC SADC roadmap to attain sustainable peace and security. Third, the United Kingdom is deeply concerned by the scale of human suffering from the conflict in Eastern DRC, as set out by our briefers, and its impact on the region. More than 1 million people have been displaced since the start of the year. We repeat our calls for all parties to respect international humanitarian and human rights law and to allow safe and unimpeded passage of humanitarian assistance by lake, road, and through the reopening of key airports, including Goma and Kavumu. We also support greater UN and donor coordination to ensure assistance reaches those most in need. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for his statement, and I give the floor to the permanent representative of China.
Thank you, President. I thank SRSG Xiahua, Executive Director Russell, and Chairperson Antonio for their briefings. We welcome Her Excellency Kai Kwamba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the DRC and Permanent Representative of Rwanda and Kenya to this meeting. Recently, amid the ongoing offensive by the M23, conflict in the eastern DRC has escalated, plunging the entire Great Lakes region into instability. This surge in violence has raised widespread concerns about the potential for broader conflict, threatening to undo more than a decade of efforts aimed at fostering stability and prosperity in the region. The international community must act swiftly and collaboratively to reverse this alarming trend before it deepens further. I would like to make 3 points. First, an immediate ceasefire must be secured to prevent further escalation of conflict. As long as fighting persists in the eastern DRC, lasting peace in the Great Lakes region will remain elusive. Last February, the Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 2773, calling on all parties to immediately achieve ceasefire. Regional leaders from the AU, EAC, and SADC echoed this call. China strongly urges the M23 to comply with the ceasefire requirements set forth by the Council and regional organizations, and to immediately stop all military expansion and unconditionally withdraw from all occupied areas. China calls on all relevant countries to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of their neighbors, in line with the principles of the Addis Ababa Framework Agreement. And all forms of support for arms groups operating in the DRC must stop. We hoped all countries in the region will refrain from actions that could heighten tensions and will work together towards building mutual trust and de-escalation of the situation. Second, it is essential to support regional processes and pursue a political solution. There is no military solution to the conflict in the eastern DRC. Political negotiation remains the only way out. Recently, leaders from the EAC and SADC have convened 2 joint summits outlining a roadmap for resolving the crisis and establishing a coordinator group to guide the process. Qatar has facilitated a trilateral meeting between the leaders of the DRC and Rwanda in Doha, and there have been direct contacts between the DRC government and M23. All these are encouraging and positive developments. China hopes that Rwanda and Congo and the DRC will sincerely respond to the mediation efforts by regional and international partners, resolve each other's security concerns through dialogue, and reach a lasting peace plan at an early date. The international community should continue to support Africa solutions to African problems and called on the AU, EAC, SADC, and partners outside the region to strengthen mutual coordination. China appreciates SRSG Xia Huang's active shuttle diplomacy and encourages him to strengthen support for regional peace efforts. Third, it is crucial to adopt a comprehensive approach to address the root causes of conflict and instability. The recurring outbreaks of violence in the Great Lakes region over the past decades underscore that the underlying issues remain unresolved. The international community must adopt comprehensive measures to support the countries in the Great Lakes region in systematically addressing the root causes of security deficits, governance deficiencies, and unbalanced development. We should support countries in the region in strengthening the governance of natural resources and advancing mutual beneficial cooperation so that these resources become a true driver of peace and development. The Addis Ababa Framework Agreement remains the most comprehensive mechanism for addressing the root causes of conflicts in the region. Given the current situation, revitalizing this crucial instrument has become all the more necessary and urgent. China calls on all signatories to reaffirm their commitments to the agreement and inject new momentum into regional peace. President, China and Africa have always been good friends, good partners, and good brothers with a shared destiny. Guided by the principles of sincerity, real results, affinity, and good faith, China actively works with countries in the Great Lakes region to support their efforts in maintaining peace and stability, fostering independent and resilient development, and steadily advancing towards modernization.
Commitment to this fundamental document whose pertinence has been proven by events in recent months. We support the work of the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General, Huang Xia, to assist in this area. We note his efforts to decrease tensions in the region. From our side, I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for her statement, and now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President.
To thank Special Envoy Huang Xia, Executive Director Catherine Russell, and Foreign Minister Tete Antonio for your briefings today. The United States remains deeply concerned by the situation in eastern DRC, and we strongly condemn the continued violence, including by M23. We urge all parties to immediately cess hostilities and to hold accountable those responsible for human rights abuses. As Resolution 2773 calls for, M23 must fully withdraw from all territory of which it is taking control. Rwanda must cease support for M23 and withdraw all troops from the DRC. We are encouraged by M23 and RDF withdrawal of forces from Walikale. We call on Rwanda to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC and further call on all countries in the region to do the same. We are encouraged by the DRC's willingness to hold direct talks with the M23. Mr. President, a cohesive African-led process remains the most viable path toward a lasting solution, and we hope the UN's good offices, broad mandates, and vast institutional knowledge in the Great Lakes can be brought to bear to support these regional peace initiatives. Greater coordination between regional and UN mechanisms is needed to prevent forum shopping and duplication of efforts. We reject any action by the parties to delay commitments, amass negotiating leverage, or distract the international community from further escalation. We welcome Special Envoy Xia's use of his position to assist regional countries and organizations in their efforts toward peace. 12 years after its adoption, the Peace, Security, and Cooperation Framework remains far from both being fully implemented and realizing its foundational goal of ending recurring cycles of violence in this region. While root causes persist, the United States remains committed to supporting an end to this conflict. We believe the Great Lakes region has immense potential for shared prosperity through enduring peace and stability. That is why the United States sent a recent high-level delegation to the region. But this conflict must end. Only then will the region be able to unlock its full potential. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci.
I thank the representative of the United States for that statement. I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Denmark.
And I also thank Special Envoy Shea, Executive Director Russell, and His Excellency Foreign Minister Antonio for their briefings today. I'd also like to welcome the participation of Foreign Minister Wagner of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, as well as the representative of Rwanda and Kenya here today. Mr. President, the picture our briefers have painted here today is a complex one. From protracted crisis and displacement to political instability and fragile institutions, the situation...
Je donne à présent la parole à son Excellence, Madame Thérèse Kayikwamba Wagner, ministre d'État, ministre des Affaires étrangères, de la coopération internationale et de la francophonie de la République démocratique du Congo.
Monsieur le Président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du Conseil, permettez-moi au nom du gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo de féliciter la France pour sa présidence du Conseil ce mois d'avril et de remercier sa délégation pour l'organisation de cette réunion ainsi que pour le dialogue interactif tenu la semaine dernière. Je salue ici aussi la présence de mon frère, son Excellence Monsieur Tete Antonio, ministre des Relations extérieures de l'Angola et président du Conseil exécutif de l'Union africaine, ainsi que la présence de l'envoyé spécial du secrétaire général pour la région des Grands Lacs et de la directrice exécutive de l'UNICEF et des représentants des pays membres de la région des Grands Lacs. Monsieur le Président, depuis l'adoption de la résolution 2773, 54 jours se sont écoulés, marqués par l'attente, l'inertie et la poursuite des violences. Sur le terrain, rien n'a changé. Les violations persistent, les tensions s'aggravent et la paix demeure hors de portée. Le dernier rapport du secrétaire général est sans équivoque. Les aéroports de Goma et de Bukavu restent sous le contrôle effectif du M23 et des RDF. Dans les zones occupées, les exécutions sommaires, enlèvements, enrôlements forcés et atteintes aux droits fondamentaux se multiplient. Une dérive plus grave encore s'installe, l'imposition d'un ordre politico-juridique parallèle fondé sur la force au mépris de l'autorité souveraine de l'État congolais. À cette dynamique de prédation politique et militaire s'ajoute une autre urgence tout aussi tragique, la crise humanitaire. Comme l'a souligné le secrétaire général dans son rapport, ainsi que la directrice exécutive de l'UNICEF, elle a atteint un seuil critique. Plus d'1,5 million de nouveaux déplacés, des zones entières inaccessibles et une intensification des attaques contre les camps de déplacés et les centres de soins. Parallèlement, les coupes budgétaires imposées aux agences humanitaires du système des Nations Unies compromettent gravement les capacités d'intervention. Les besoins explosent, les ressources s'effondrent et l'espoir s'efface. C'est un appel solennel que nous lançons à la communauté internationale. L'urgence humanitaire en République démocratique du Congo ne peut plus attendre. Il en va de notre devoir moral, mais aussi de la stabilité régionale. Les flux de réfugiés vers les pays voisins fragilisent les écosystèmes sociaux déjà précaires et nous devons le dire avec lucidité. Le retour des déplacés et des réfugiés dans un contexte d'occupation prolongée et de tentatives de repopulation imposée est une question hautement sensible. Elle touche à la cohésion sociale et à la mémoire des territoires. Mal gérée, elle deviendra un terreau fertile pour des conflits futurs. Mr. President, the adoption of...
Monsieur le Président, l'adoption de la résolution 2773 du Conseil de sécurité marque un tournant. Et pourtant, la situation sur le terrain n'a pas changé. La coalition RDF M23 continue ses violations comme si la volonté du Conseil ne s'était jamais exprimée, comme si la résolution était vouée à rester lettre morte.
Nous ne sommes pas du même avis. Cette résolution est un instrument vivant, voué à protéger des vies, à restaurer la légalité, à préserver la paix. Des millions de vies dans l'Est de la RDC attendent toujours sa mise en œuvre intégrale. Dans ce contexte, l'élan régional doit être renforcé et placé sous le signe de l'unité. Nous nous félicitons des efforts inlassables du président João Lourenço